right, we are back here. Song of the day coming to you from the Rock Cave. I'm your host, Mark. Here this Wednesday, Wanderlust Wednesday here in the cave. And what are we doing this week? We're doing all 70s this week. Hope you're enjoying hanging out in the 70s. 70s are a tough decade, aren't they? I mean, you got your powerhouse bands. You got your staples, Doors, Stones, Led Zeppelin, Grand Funk. I mean, you got all these bands, right? Those are the easy ones. Those are the softballs, as we like to call them. And then you got all this music. Like, first of all, you look at the charts, and it's all easy listening. All Seals and Crofts, all these bands. I mean, there was a ton of easy listening music in the 70s, so much so that it's sometimes hard to even look up what was going on that week and try to do a song of the day, because it was just so prevalent. They were so mellow. And then, of course, 77, 78 disco, which I'm not going to rank on disco right now, but I'm saying when you're in the rock cave, the 70s are a tough one. So what are we talking about for Wanderlust Wednesday? Think about it. I'm pulling up bands I'm thinking of, ones you didn't necessarily hear, looking stuff up, and a lot of it, just the reason why you didn't hear it is because it wasn't any good, or at least it wasn't for me. And when I listen to it, it's like, oh, that's totally the 70s, right? But I thought of a couple of bands, and I was like, you know what, I'll check into that. And we're going to get to the one we're doing in just a second. But one of the ones I was thinking of was the band Little Feat. Little Feat's got, you never hear about them. You never hear about them at all. And that's something to think about. But who are we talking about today? We're talking about the band Montrose, right? I've already brought them up many times, talking about Sammy Hagar and Van Halen, but we've never talked about Montrose. And you have to, I'm 54, going to be 54, and I didn't grow up with this music, and they didn't play it on the radio. So you have to be about maybe 5 years older than me to be like, yeah, Montrose, they were awesome. Right about 5 years older than me, I think. Montrose, their debut record, 1973, with Sam Hagar. He wasn't Sammy, he was Sam. Sam Hagar on vocals and Ronnie Montrose. Ronnie Montrose, interesting, he played with the Edgar Winter Band and played on Frankenstein, right? He also did some session work. He was on Van Morrison's Tupelo Honey album. That's pretty amazing. And follow me here. That record, Van Morrison's record, was produced by Ted Templeton. Does that name sound familiar to anyone here in the room? Anyone? Ted Templeton? We've talked about him. You guys know who he is? Well, because he knew Ted Templeton as a producer when he left Edgar Winter Band and formed Montrose, which I think originally was called Ronnie Montrose and Friends. That's terrible. But when he formed Montrose, he got Ted Templeton to produce the record. And this record came out, their self-titled debut, in 1973. And the record company, Warner Brothers, didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to market them. Were they heavy? Were they rock? What were they? But they were being billed as America's answer to Led Zeppelin. What do you think about that? Those are shoes to fill right there. Did you guys even know that they were billed this way? It's crazy. They did have 2 songs off this record that got not much airplay. The record only went to number 133. Over time, over years and years and years, it would eventually sell 1 million copies over a long time, mostly because of overseas popularity. They were big in Japan. They could walk around and say, I'm big in Japan. I'm huge in Japan, right, Paul Chabot? But over time, it got some respect. So much so that in 1989, Kerrang magazine voted this the 4th best metal album of all time. I had to read that like 20 times. I had to put my readers on. I was like, what am I looking at here? And that's pretty crazy. But Rock Candy is a song on there that you might know. But really, the song we're talking about today is Bad Motor Scooter. Bad Motor Scooter, I mean, this sounds like a Motley Crue song, or just, it's definitely heavy. And that slide guitar, that kind of distorted slide guitar at the beginning, that wasn't there at the beginning. When they brought the song to the band, to start working on it, Ted Templeton hated it, the band hated it, but then they started fooling around with this guitar in a fuzz box and just started doing stuff with it, and this came up with this guitar, this little intro, and that changed everything. And you think about that, a lot of Van Halen records start off with that And they do that over the years. If you think of Pound Cake and some of these other ones later, a lot of that effect was being used much later. Who loves this band? Iron Maiden. Iron Maiden grew up listening to these guys and were like, they love them. They've covered their songs. That's pretty cool. And this is just pretty interesting, right? Sammy Hagar would later, of course, go solo. And Ted Templeton would move on and be the producer for all the Van Halen records that you all love. Pretty amazing, right? So Ted Templeton, Sam Hagar, Van Halen. Pretty amazing. Sammy Hagar with Chickenfoot would play this song, Bad Motor Scooter, and Joe Satriani would take over for the guitar on this. That's pretty awesome too. So we're at 6 minutes. You're listening to Montrose today. Again, you just don't hear it. I know that some of you out there, I know who you are. I know who's going to comment on this and say, yep, got it. But this is a big band. And if you don't know Bad Motor Scooter, you're listening to that now, right now, because that is a good one. Crank it up and listen to it a few times. It is worth listening to. I don't know why they didn't play it on the radio. It wasn't part of a rock block weekend. Maybe they didn't have that third song. But this is good. Sammy Hagar, lifetime of great work. Whatever you're doing today, I hope it involves music. Looking forward to the rest of the week here in the cave. Have a good one. And as usual, I'll catch you on the flip side.